More than 5 million people left the European continent via the Hamburg port between 1836 and 1934. In the beginning, it was mainly Germans who immigrated. Around 1880, Hamburg became the gateway to a new world for many Eastern Europeans as well. Among them, many were Jews fleeing from annihilation. These immigrants sought a future in the USA free from persecution, a future in freedom, peace, and prosperity. The rise of the USA in the 20th century has its roots in the strength and optimism these immigrants brought with them. It is very difficult for the descendants of the immigrants to imagine what suffering and hardship their ancestors had to bear to reach the country of their dreams. Most immigrants were illiterate. That is why preserved documents describing the way to the New World are very valuable rarities.
March 8, 1901. Dear Diary, Samuel and I have finally decided to leave here. He has been out of work for over a year now, and the situation is growing unbearable. They don't want us here. I can't even remember how it felt to fall asleep without being hungry. Today a letter from Jakob arrived. He says there is no work in Poland either. So we will go to America. It won't be easy for us to leave everything behind, but it can only be better there.
In the beginning, European immigrants mainly used the ports of Le Havre, Antwerp, and Liverpool. In Germany, Bremen had an early lead in the immigration business, as there was profit to be made by the shipping companies, their agents, and all those who were able to sell goods to the immigrants. The city of Hamburg realized very late that immigration was good business. But at the turn of the century, the port of Hamburg was the most important immigration port worldwide, especially for refugees from the eastern part of Europe. For them, Hamburg became a gateway to freedom. Once they arrived in Hamburg, the immigrants were hard-pressed by hotel owners, agents, and merchants who tried to exploit them by selling the immigrants overpriced goods and accommodations. The Senate of Hamburg did not succeed in preventing this exploitation. Things improved, however, when the shipping companies themselves took control and started to care for the provisions and accommodation for their passengers. In 1892, the Hamburg Amerika Paketfahrt AG, called HAPAG, built 8 special barracks at the Amerika Wharf to house immigrants. But even there, the more hygienic conditions were so unacceptable that the local press and the churches protested against them. 175 persons were supposed to live in one barrack. Diseases spread fast in these confined quarters. A large number of immigrants died during the cholera epidemic in Hamburg in 1892. Starting in 1900, the Hapag finally built a small immigrant village on the Vettel, far away from the city center. These so-called immigration halls were a model of cleanliness and efficiency for the standards of the time. They were inaugurated in 1901. Since the immigrants belonged to various religious groups, Catholic and Protestant churches, a synagogue, and even kosher food were available.
March 18, 1901. Dear Diary, we are now in Krakow, a little bit closer to our final destination. We finally hold the tickets in our hands. They are almost everything we've got left, since we used most of our belongings to pay for them. After the hardship of traveling in the last days, I am so very glad that we finally can use the train from here on. Even though the train is really crowded, it is still better than those endlessly long marches that are behind us now. We will ride the train until Hamburg. There is supposed to be a small community for immigrants like us. We were shown photos of it. March 19th, 1901. Dear Diary, we are in Germany now. Today we had our medical examinations. They checked our eyes, disinfected us, and rounded us up like cattle. And this will not be the last time, as we recently have learned. There are supposed to be checks when we arrive in Hamburg, when we board the ship, and when we arrive in America. At least we have today's examination behind us.
The medical checks were organized by the Hamburg because the USA would not admit sick immigrants out of fear of contagious diseases. Sometimes whole families were separated at the last minute. Life in the immigrant village on the Vettel was strictly organized. Upon arrival, each newcomer was subject to a health examination and a cleaning procedure. The immigrants had to stay in quarantine for 14 days. Despite the military organization and the quarantine, the new facilities were great improvements over the previous conditions. Due to the efforts of the Hamburg chairman Albert Ballin, after whom Hamburg's Ballindamm Street was named, Hamburg became one of the most, if not the most modern immigrant port in Europe. Albert Ballin was born in 1847. Through his sagacious investments, he made the Hamburg to one of the most important shipping companies in the world. He renamed the Hamburg to the Hamburg America Line as a result of the immigration business. Ballin consistently pursued his business goals. He set up checkpoints at the border when the Synod of Hamburg prohibited immigration out of a fear of cholera. He then demanded and successfully achieved the suspension of this prohibition. He understood the world of business and knew the importance of advertising. He convinced a lot of East European immigrants to go through the port of Hamburg by using specific advertising posters. He sent recruiters to East Europe with photos of the immigrant halls on the Vettel and the immigrant ships. Ballin freely admitted that immigration was a profitable business for him, and without the immigrants, who took up little space, he would have gone bankrupt within a few weeks. But there was a beneficial side of his profit motive. He enabled millions of political, religious, and social refugees to immigrate to America. After the quarantine and a final medical examination, the immigrants could finally board the ship.
April 3rd, 1901. Dear Diary, we have almost made it. Finally we are on the ship. Here it is rather crowded, but at least clean, and most importantly, we are on our way. In the meantime, we have gotten tougher and are grateful to have made it this far. We will survive the voyage. We are longing to arrive in America. There a new life will start for us. We are certain our children will have a brighter future there.